Hey guys, I wanted to talk briefly today about the new JT QLS frame, as you can see here. I know there's been a lot of talk about this, there's been a lot of talk about the thins, the HK RMX, how everything compares, whether it's as easy to swap as videos show. So just wanted to give you a unbiased opinion and walk through the frame here. So is the frame worth it? And how does it compare to the standard offering from JT? In my opinion, no. I don't think the frame is worth it. I think $120 for a frame, a strap, and then a clear lens is ridiculous. But I do think there are some good attributes to the frame, and I think it does accommodate a certain group of people that would want something like this. So we'll start with the negatives first. In my opinion, the two biggest negatives for the frame are the stiffness as a result of the QLS system and then the weight. So one thing that I don't think people take into account when it comes to comfort with the Proflex is the flexibility of the frame. And a lot of other masks like carbon and even dye have the same or similar flexibility, and so it really does a good job of molding to your face. So you'll see this is a standard Proflex frame, not a vintage or the new thin. But you can easily crush this in your hand. When you take the lens out, you're peeling it. It feels like it's gonna break, but it doesn't. That flexibility, again, it molds to your face, and I feel like it really contributes to the comfort of the Proflex. It's also incredibly light. So, yes, this does have a lens in it, but the reason this is so much stiffer is this outer shell here, the quick change shell that comes out when you do swap the lenses, is a much harder plastic than what's on the traditional frame. So you'll notice here, again, there's a lens in here. There's very little flexibility in the frame itself. And it weighs quite a bit more. I have a scale here. I did weigh them. I'm not gonna do it all on video. It's 360 grams for this entire build as it sits here, compared to 320 for a regular Proflex Revo 2. So it's about a 40-gram difference. Take that as it is. You do feel it. And that's what matters. This definitely feels heavier on your face. You feel like you've got a rigid frame on your face compared to that Proflex that really molds and kind of moves with you as you turn your head, like you can see here. And even here, you can see that with the lens, super flexible. With the lens, I can barely do that. One of the other bonuses, and this is kind of across the board now with the release of the thins, it does come with the quick change G1 foam, which is a huge plus. Just for cleaning foam and swapping out old foam, I think that's great. But again, across the board now, most frames that are being released have the same quick change holes as well. So I'll quickly show you how you do swap the lens on here. You guys can take it for what it is. You tell me if you think it's easier to swap or harder. One of the biggest disappointments for me was I had the assumption that this frame would be able to be swapped without having to remove the skirt, because that would really simplify the whole process for swapping lenses on the fly. Unfortunately, just like the regular Proflex, you need to remove the skirt. If you don't, this section here in the nose is actually going to block the outer edge here from being removed in order to swap the lens. So in my opinion, yes, this can be slightly faster to remove the lens once you get it down, but I do think this system here is overall just simpler. It can be almost as fast if you're proficient in it and have the experience, especially once the lens is actually broken in. So to remove this, like I said, first thing you have to do is remove that skirt. If you have the little plugs where you can remove it toolless, great. If you don't, you're gonna have to use an Allen key and a Phillips head screwdriver. But you're just gonna pull this out. And another thing that I'll note is the little tabs when you pull the skirt out. Because this frame is a different kind of plastic and it's quite a bit stiffer, getting the skirt out takes a lot more effort and is a little trickier to reinsert than if you were to do it on a traditional Proflex frame. This is really easy to pull it in and out. Not quite as easy with the QLS. First thing you're gonna do, there's two tabs in here, these gray tabs. You're gonna turn them inward until you hear it click. Turn this one inward until you hear it click. They latch onto the frame on the inside here. There's a little gasket. You're gonna pull that, just make sure it separates. pull that, make sure it separates. And then you're gonna peel the outer edges of this cover off. Once you get this off, the nose section is gonna have a divot, just like the skirt on a regular Proflex. Just like a skirt on a regular Proflex. Pull it out. Again, you'll see the little divot that I was talking about. Once that's out, you can swap the lens at will. Everything is just held in with these little tabs. Uses a regular Proflex lens. And on the frame itself, there's spots where those little tabs will sit. So pretty simple. Very little strain in your hands compared to regular Proflex. The other benefit is if you are swapping the straps with a regular Proflex, I typically use a plastic butter knife to kind of force it in that slot there. The holes are much bigger here now, so you don't need any kind of tool to swap the strap. You just need to make sure you separate the quick change assembly from the strap, which is super easy. But to install the lens, you're going to set it here. Make sure everything sits in the proper spot. It can take a little bit of manipulation because the frame itself still has some flex to it. This inner frame is not where the stiffness comes from. It's the combination of this harder plastic plus the inner frame. First thing you're going to do is insert that nose divot into the center here. There's a little plastic tab on top of that divot. You want to make sure that sits just above it. Once that's in, you're going to put the outer edge here against the strap. Make sure everything on this side is lined up. Make sure there's no gaps. And then do the same thing on the opposite side. It does take a little bit of flexing and manipulation sometimes here. Double check that everything's lined up. On this one here, you can see it's not. There was a small gap, and so you need to keep pressing along the edges, make sure all those slots are in the proper position. Then you're going to reinsert the tab here on the gasket, pull it until you hear a click, and do the same thing on the other side. Once that's good to go, you can put the skirt back on. I won't do that again on camera as it takes a second, but that's the QLS. Again, this one as a full mask weighs 360 grams. The regular one is at 320. So, like I said, I don't think the QLS is worth the price. I do think if you want this aesthetic, or if you want an upgrade from your regular frame, the new thins are the way to go. If you absolutely need a quick change lens system, I do think the HK Army RMX is more intuitive and just makes more, it's a little simpler overall. The only downside being it doesn't have that heritage look that everybody seems to like for JT. So that's just my opinion. Wanted to do a unbiased video here. I've got quite a bit of frames laying around, so felt like I'd be a good person to do a comparison. So like I said, I don't think the QLS is worth it. It's a cool feature, and I think it's a good thing that they created something like this. But if you want quick change, I'd say go HK. If you want that thin look, go with the new thins from Proflex Builder. So yeah.